Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka, and welcome to episode 11. In this episode, you're going to meet Cami and Niki, hosts of the Double Teamed podcast, twin sisters, hosts of a podcast about non-monogamy, sex, kink, everything that comes with that. They're fucking amazing. We talk about non-monogamy, obviously, the different categories of non-monogamy. We talk about kink. We talk about having the conversation with your significant other about seeing other people, banging other people. It's an awesome episode. And, listen, guys, this is our first two-parter together. That's right. This is the first two-part episode of Sex Party. Part 1 will be this week. And then Cami and Niki return next week for part 2. Enjoy my first conversation with Cami and Niki.
This week's conversation.
Cami and Niki, hosts of the Double Team podcast. Hello, welcome to Sex Party. How are you guys?
We're good. Thanks for having us.
Yep,
Yeah.
we're doing all right.
Just all right?
Yeah, today's the just all right day for me.
We're just busy, but all good.
Yeah.
Busy with good things.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so for the people who are watching this, listening to this, that don't know who you are, can you intro yourselves, one, so we can tell who's who, right? And then also just talk a little bit about yourselves and about the show, Double Teamed.
Sure. So I'm Niki, and then my co-host is my twin, Cami, right here.
This is Cami.
Yep. So our show is called Double Teamed Podcast. We mainly talk about non-monogamy, kink, sexuality, which are all things that, both of us are, interested in or participate in. So yeah, we just kind of like to take the approach of, taking our experiences, seeing what we learned from them, and then discussing it with our listeners along the way. It's been a lot of fun. We started the podcast almost a year ago, and we've just absolutely loved it. So we've had a ton of fun with it. And yeah, that's who we are.
Yeah, I'd say we mainly started it just to talk about Nikki's journey in becoming a non-monogamist, and then somehow that transpired into oh, we're also gonna talk about kink because I started exploring kink more last year, more intentionally. And Nikki's been exploring it for a little while too. So we kind of just opened the doors for everything, and then we're like, okay, let's talk about this. And yeah, see who vibes with us. I feel like the goal of our podcast is to create a community, and more awareness within these communities of non-monogamy and kink. And of course, just talk about sexuality, because I feel like the more we talk about it,
The better.
the better.
Yeah.
People,
Yeah.
need to open up and,
yeah,
kind
we
of.
need to stop shaming sex. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you're in the right place. Yeah, I feel like shame has become like some other thing in the last, I don't know, how, whatever, 20, 50, whatever years. But it's, they used to hunt down people and murder people in the street for far less. But still, shame is one of those things where it can, and especially doing this show, I found it can force you. Some of my guests have talked about being forced into a place where they are doing things they don't want to do or that are against how they truly feel because they feel so fucking shame. So it's good to hear you say that. And on your show, I mean, you guys definitely kind of tackle that the same way that I'm trying to kind of give people an alternative to feeling like shit about themselves all the time,
Mhm.
Well, I would say, I was just gonna say, I think it just normalizing some things. It's a lot of people will feel shame for, yeah, maybe they're kinky, maybe they like, being collared, or maybe they like,
being degraded or
certain things in bed, and it's like, we grow up thinking like, oh, that's not normal, but it's like, yes, it is. Like, a lot more people like being slapped across the face than you would think,
in
in
bed.
bed.
Yeah.
So so we have to normalize some of these things, so like
People don't feel alone.
yeah, you don't feel alone, you don't feel weird for what you like, and you can find like-minded people along the way.
Yeah, and I mean that is really important, because who the fuck is telling all of us to not like these things or not feel this way? One, and two, I can't, if you feel a certain way sexually, physically, emotionally, mentally inside your body, and someone's being like, that's wrong, that, I mean, the psychological fucking chaos that creates, right? Like, so I think a big part of it is sort of taking a look at, who, I mean, in your guys's episodes and like journey with the show, has it been like a religious thing that's been like messing with people's minds, or is it a societal thing, the neighbors like pointing their finger or whatever the fuck is going on?
I mean, I think it always just stems from a variety of things. Yeah, it could be a religious background, like we grew up Catholic technically, where you're made supposed to feel like you're guilty for everything you do, just breathing. And then, there's societal shame because, things aren't normal, from like how you grew up, like your family, your upbringing, if your parents aren't like super open about sexuality and those things. So it's like the environment around us shapes us in ways, you know, and because of it, we have these thoughts and idea of what things are supposed to look like. But really, there is no normal, there is no like standard. Everything is so different for everyone. You really have to take the time to find how you define things for yourself, and then how you want to approach sex, relationships, love, all those things, and then from there find the people that align with you.
Right. Yeah, so you found that the community that you're creating with the show, like people are connecting with each other and talking and hooking up and slapping each other?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like we found a lot of great people through the show that, like I said, share our ideas, or have like, some of our guests that we've had on the show have given us new perspectives that we've both considered, and have helped us grow as well. So it's been a really cool experience where it's not only like personal growth, but also like connection and friendships. We've made some great friends through it all as well. So yeah, we're slowly but surely definitely building that community.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so let's break it down just a little bit further. So, twin sister, identical twins?
Sort of. I
Yeah.
think.
We're
not
not
really sure.
totally sure, but it's just twin sisters.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, who host a podcast called Double Teamed about kink and non-monogamy. And you touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but how did you arrive here, right? Did one of you come out to the other one and be like, hey, like I know you said it was about Nikki's journey or whatever at first, but how is it that you're both non-monogamous, kink, like into these different things? Was it something you talked about before, or how did we get there?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like we've always been pretty open with each other about our sexualities. But I will say, when I initially opened up my marriage, I didn't tell Cami about it for about a year or so, because I didn't know what she would think, and I was like afraid to be open about it, and I didn't really know what it was. And I was like 23 at the time, 24, so I was still really young. And then finally one day I told her about it, and like I said, we've always had great communication, always been really open with each other. So we just like always talk about our sex lives with each other, like share experiences and like what we learned and whatnot. And we're both into like reverse harem fiction and books that are very like raunchy and sexual in nature. So we read the same books quite a bit, and discuss all of those. And so we're just always having these conversations about these topics. And it was like our probably the one thing that we talk about the most. And I don't know if that's the same for all siblings, but at least for us, like it just was.
Right.
And I just remember one day I had a guy over that I was hooking up with, and Kimi and I were joking about something sexual. I can't remember what it was. And he was like, "Oh, you guys should start a podcast about this." And we were like, "Nah, we're not going to do that." And then, like
2 weeks later.
yeah, 2 weeks later, we were with Kimi's dude, and then
And his
his
friend.
friend who produces podcasts. and we like had made a joke about how that guy had said that because the topic was on like sex and dating and love and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Oh, you guys should absolutely do it." And we were like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah, I think you should." He's like, "It'd be great content. Here's a guy I know that does editing because I don't know the first thing about editing.
Right.
Now I do. Now I've learned quite a bit. But anyway, so he hooked us up with that guy, and then it was just born. He introduced us. He was like, "Hey, these two girls, their podcast going to be called Double Teamed." He picked out the name and everything.
Oh wow.
And here we are. Yeah.
Yeah. It
So
was like an email. It was
yeah,
it was I think I still have that email.
we'll
And
have to archive it.
yeah, I'm gonna have to like make a picture of it. But yeah, our friend was like, "Hey, insert our editor's name or audio editor's name." He was like, "This is Double Teamed with Cami and Niki. Just wanted to make the introduction. They're wanting to start a podcast about non-monogamy." And we were like, "Oh, okay, we're doing this." And then it was basically like building the plane as we were taking off.
Yeah.
Um,
We didn't know the first thing about
yeah, as I
podcasting.
like to
Who the
say.
f-
But yeah, and we
Yeah.
learned so much. But I mean, I think the catalyst, I mean, it all started when Nikki and I, became more open with each other when it came to like talking about sex and stuff. Just because, we talk so much and we're so connected with each other. Like, we don't just talk about like, oh, how's work and friends. So it
Yeah, we always
became
get
more
into the
than that.
deep yeah.
Yeah, we started having the deeper conversations, and then I finally moved to LA, and we always wanted to start something together. And as soon as that email was sent, I feel like everything would just happen so naturally.
Yeah.
So it's been such a fun and lovely journey, but I'm just so happy that it began. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird how you sort of overthink creative projects, and then also like creative projects about fucking sex, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden when you're doing it or when it's flowing, it's like, wow, well, I should have just done this, or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so some basic things that I want to just for the audience, the setup, because let's approach this and just assume that everybody in the world is been like it's been whipped into their brains, not in a good way, in a bad way. Like go to church, make sure you always and you're in bed before 9, don't have sex with other or whatever. Like just stupid like non or stupid like monogamous sort of whatever you know
Mhm.
um let's pretend that everybody's been conditioned that way. So first of all, how do each one of you identify? Is it like bisexual? Are you straight? Are you like, just to get that sort of on record?
Sure. Nikki here. So I'm bisexual. I date both men and women. And I have sexual relationships with both. I am non-monogamous. There's a wide range of non-monogamy, so many people identify with different forms of non-monogamy. Some are swingers, some are polyamorous, some are relationship anarchists, which that's a lot of different vocabulary
Right.
vocabulary there to throw at you. But basically, so like if you're swinging, it's you and another couple, or you're in a couple with another couple, you guys are swapping, all that fun stuff. Polyamorous, usually there's more of an emphasis on like emotional connections and relationships, not just like the sexual piece of it. Sexual anarchy, which is like a way that you can approach relationships where well, that one's a little bit harder to define, but
Sounds fun.
yeah.
Basically, you just don't look at relationships in like within the relationship escalator. Like you see
Yeah,
that
or the
there's
boundaries that society places
yeah.
on them.
Right.
Yeah. So I would say in non-monogamy, currently I'm like a solo polyamorist. I have a variety of relationships, but none of which I consider to be like a primary relationship that I'm like building with a person. So I
Right.
I have my own relationships. A couple of them, they're all aware that I have other relationships, and then I make decisions for myself. So that's how I identify. Cami. Oh, I'm also kinky.
I was gonna say, yeah, you're
Yeah,
also.
I'm also kinky.
I would say I'm for the most part straight.
Yeah.
Of course, I am an ally for sure for the LGBTQIA plus community. I have a lot of queer friends, and I absolutely love supporting them in their journeys. And I think Yeah, I would say for now, I'm mostly straight. I'm an ally to non-monogamy. I'm an ally to polyamory. Um, I'm an ally to Nicole, doing discovering her sexuality, whenever she came out to me as bi, like,
Yeah.
of course I had no issue with it. I was like, that's dope. Like, do what you got to do, whatever you love. And then I would say, yeah, I'm kinky as well. And I'm just on a journey of self discovery as well. I feel like, your 20s are that time where you really start to get to know yourself. And I feel like the past few years are, you know, I've given myself more of a chance to, kind of look at myself and be like, okay, well, what do I like? What do I want to keep exploring?
I
I
think for Cami, she like from what I've gathered, you're mostly emotionally monogamous, but you'd like a relationship where you can be sexually non-monogamous.
Yeah, I think, once I do find like that primary partner for myself, I used to be engaged. I had a 4-year relationship. He and I ended things when I moved to LA. Um, and as I've started dating again and, having partners again, I've realized, and, also like, I'm kinky. I go to sex parties. I would love a partner who would be open minded with me as well, who would like to go to sex parties with me, maybe have some threesomes or foursomes, things like that. So, in the future, I myself would also want like a version of sexual non monogamy.
Okay. But you're more comfortable, like you want a primary partner and then someone who's like willing to like have fun and just get into it or whatever. Whereas Nikki is like multiple partners for the time being, like a plethora of partners.
Yeah, I always joked I'd like to be married to 3 tech dudes so we can all take over the world and change the tax code. But realistically, whatever comes along my way is what I'm gonna be happy with.
I mean, we could get you in front of Congress, I think, and you could propose that. I mean,
Okay.
it might work actually.
I just think the tax code as it's written is stupid as fuck in the way that like why do single people have to pay more than married people? There's one income versus two. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Um and it's just I took a whole class as part of my master's on the tax laws,
Yeah.
and as after that course I was like that made no fucking sense. And I studied it for an entire semester. And I'm like this is stupid. So we got to redo it. And the way that you can only be married to one person per, the government, I think that's also shit. But I digress. Those are just personal opinions.
Right, right, right. Okay, and well, they're good opinions, not nonetheless. Um, so vote Nikki 2024, basically. Um, okay, so let's
You
get
love that.
yeah,
Bingo.
for real. um, I mean, it's not too late. You can still get, it's fucking 2022. You still got some time. You can throw your
I'll probably wait till my 30s before I start running for
There you
Congress.
go.
Isn't there an age limit anyways? I don't have a law degree, but whatever.
I think all the rules are just sort of out the fucking window at this point, considering what we've been through the last 7 years or whatever the fuck. I think anybody could just do anything at this point. So do it. Throw all of your hats in the ring. Okay. So to break it down, to boil this section down, like we talked a little bit about it just now, but non-monogamy, umbrella term, right? But underneath that
Mhm.
term, you guys clearly defined some really cool sort of basic tiers, right?
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning, like the soft swap, right? Define if you guys could define what that is and why it's like the entry level to non-monogamy, I think.
So I would say like the first, couple categories in the entry level version of non-monogamy would be like monogamish,
Mm,
soft swap, kind of like monogamish is essentially where it's kind of like the setup that my husband and I had when we first opened up, which was basically like when we were together we were both pilots, so we like traveled quite a bit. When we were together at home, we only saw each other, but when we were apart, like on trips, then we had the freedom to pursue, sexual relationships if we wanted to. So monogamish basically means like you're mostly monogamous, but under some certain circumstances, you're willing to allow the other partner to explore and you guys have some freedom there. Soft swap is kind of a term. So like if you're a couple and maybe like you go to sex parties or you swap with other couples. Like this is for like, hetero couples. It can be, for other couples as well, but like it mainly makes sense for hetero couples
Sure.
where like just like the girls swap. So maybe like you've got two couples, girl comes over for one, they have a threesome, they have their fun, and then like they switch. So then the girl from the other couple goes to that. So that kind of thing. And then also, basically just like those early on entry level arrangements where you're not totally monogamous, but you're opening up in some way. Or maybe, you're just a couple and you're looking for threesomes altogether. So like you go out and, you see a girl or a guy that you guys are both interested in, and then you have a threesome that way. So those are typically, like I always say, like how people kind of dip their toe in the pool of non-monogamy. The next layer to that would be like full on swinging or full swap. And then like fully open relationships where you have the ability to pursue sexual relationships in any kind of situation. So swinging, like I said, it's like where you've got two couples. Now maybe they're all playing together, so they've got foursomes. Maybe they're like, swapping, whatever that way looks like. Probably going to sex parties, all those fun things. And then an open relationship would be like where you guys have the freedom to like go on dates and have sexual relationships and have your fun like whenever you want to. I would say the ultimate kind of like upper part of the layer or cake, however you want to look at it. I looked at it like a cake because I like cake. Some people look at it as like a spectrum. So like if we're looking to like the right side of the spectrum, then you've got polyamory, relationship anarchy, those kind of things. This is where like you are pursuing multiple emotional connections and relationships. So it's not just about like sex, but also about like building relationships with people. And that's not to say that like you can't have relationships with these people in in the first or middle part of that spectrum. Like obviously like your friends, you're hanging out with them, like you care about them, all those things. But like in polyamories where you're looking at relationships that are going to be more emotional in nature, have like the possibility of extending into more and those kind of things. So I hope that clears it up for people. But I mean, under the umbrella of non-monogamy, there's lots of ways that you can do it. And I think it's really important for couples to or couples or people, individuals, whoever
Sure.
is pursuing non-monogamy,
Yeah.
to identify like what works for them the best, what they prefer, those kind of things.
Do you have anything to add to that, Cami?
No, she explained it well.
Okay, so basically, just to break it down, super basic, soft swap level 1, right? Like a couple or two people or maybe one person, whomever is like, we're gonna take the Hooters waitress home, but I don't want her to do anything else except for blow you or something like that. Like there's
Sure.
rules,
Yep.
there's something like that, right? And then the second level, full swap, is like, hey, I wonder if Chester and Mary next door want to get down. So then all of a sudden, so it's like more of like a regular, like
Mm-hmm.
defined, like everyone's fucking each other, switching everything, whatever. And then
Yeah.
polyamory is like, this is serious. Someone's eating our food in the refrigerator. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
like right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like I said, they all look different for everyone, Like some people in polyamory, they practice they call it a kitchen table dynamic where like everyone's together and it's like one big happy family. Some people in polyamory like to keep their relationships separate, so they keep them parallel, and the partners know each other but they don't meet. Like there are so many different flavors to it. I feel like by now I've practiced a good majority of them. I think when I look at my future polyamory, I can give or take. I don't have to have it. But I would ideally what I would love is a relationship where like I have a partner or
Sure.
multiple partners.
Yeah.
And we are committed to each other, and committed to building a life together in some way. But we have the freedom to explore other connections as we see fit. So like if we vibe with someone and we want to explore more with them, whatever that looks like, we have the freedom to do that. And that's what I'd love to do. I'm a big believer in found family. I remember one of our guests had used that term and I really liked it. And so I'd love to, build a family of people that I know and love, and that, love each other and just, live life in kind of that community aspect.
Right.
And I think, it's important to note, like, within all of these, layers, or at any point on the spectrum where you are with non monogamy, it's important to note you're going to have, you know, boundaries and constant communication throughout, which is
Mhm.
very important,
Yeah.
to keep these going. So,
And just an understanding of, what everyone wants, what everyone's looking to get out of the relationships.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of it takes like deconstructing, what you think a relationship looks like and then redefining it for yourself.
Yeah, and I think you know, as with anything, it sounds more difficult when you put it on paper before you do it or practice it or whatever. I mean, and
Yeah.
anything is that way. But do you ever feel like, okay, what is happening in this scenario? If you've got multiple partners and you are, I don't know, doing different things with each partner, does it ever get like just fucking confusing as to what's going on? Or are you,
You have to really be able to compartmentalize. I definitely agree
yeah,
with that because I mean, you can have like one relationship doing great, and then at the same time, like your other relationships like doing bad. So it takes a lot of. It's true. Takes a lot of compartmentalizing.
I
Takes a
bet.
lot of organization. I live by my Google Calendar. And I like it's funny because the times that I've dated monogamous people, they like don't understand why I'm always sending calendar invites, or why like I'm so obsessed with my calendar. But it's like, when I have like 4 people I need to see that I'm trying to make time for, like, hell yeah, I'm using a calendar.
she's a Virgo Venus, let her
Yeah.
live.
And yeah, I mean, honestly, like as non-monogamous, we really should all thank Google Calendar for being our saving grace. But no, really, like it can get a little bit much. I think everyone has to figure out like if you're going to be non-monogamous in any form, like what is your limit? Because I definitely have that. I think about maybe 4, if I have like 1 to 2 serious relationships and then maybe like 2 to 3 casual relationships that aren't as demanding, that right there is about my limit.
Right.
I actually had to tell a guy last week, I'm like, look, dude, he really wanted to go on a date with me. I'm like, I've got enough right now on my plate that I'm trying to juggle. And so I told him, I'm like, I'm going to hit you up later on if if something happens. But for the most part, there is they call it polysaturated, like when you have too many partners.
Sure.
But yeah, like I said, sometimes some of them, one's doing great and then the other's kind of like going through some issues. So you got to figure out how to work through that. Some, they'll be like with their other partners, like, hey, I need, some time to focus on this relationship. And then, but it takes communication. So like you got to be able to communicate your partners, what's going on, how you're feeling, what you need. And then from there, like negotiate what works best for the both of you.
Was the dude pissed where he was like, "What do you mean? No, I'm a backup or whatever?"
No, it was funny. He was like, I'm sure I could blow anyone off your roster out of
Oh
the water.
God,
And I'm
they all
like,
say
nah,
that
dude, you
probably.
can't.
Yeah.
I'm like, so yeah, I mean, everyone's reaction to it is different, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Nikki is a pro. She's utilizing the Google Calendar. I mean, I'm sure that your notes in your phone are probably just like jacked too, like descriptions and what happened and all these things. Like my notes are fried in my phone, and I guarantee I don't have like all the things going on that you do. So I can only imagine. But that's great. You're professional. We love it. We love to see it. Um, Okay, so that being said, well, and just real quick, like there's just a couple terms, right? And you touched on some of them, but like a harem, can we define what a harem is?
So a
Because
harem is technically a man with multiple women or multiple wives. But a harem usually implies that like the women do not see anyone outside of that man or outside of anyone in the harem. People in the non-monogamy community don't really like the word harem for that reason because it implies that like people don't have the autonomy to pursue their own things. So now like I've read reverse harem fiction, so or Kimi and I both have. So that's where like you have a girl and multiple guys. But usually it implies that it's closed. So yeah, harem's one of them.
okay, um, and so to jump back then, now that those are defined, because I just wanted to get that out of the way. When you said you have to compartmentalize a lot with each partner, right? So
Mm-hmm.
and if this isn't something where you've got all these partners and it's just like let's just say there's 5 partners, 3 are like more of a sexual thing, 2 are emotional, or 3 are emotional, 2 are sex, whatever.
Mhm.
When you're emotionally invested in more than one person, like how deep does the compartmentalization go, right? So if you're with partner 1, like Dan, I don't know where these names are coming from, but whatever. If you're with Dan, but you're kind of like upset about Bill, God, these are terrible. Do you have to like compartmentalize that emotion then completely? Because I feel like when someone's bummed about a relationship going bad, they're just like a fucking mess. They're just either crying or they want to go to Vegas or or whatever. So how do you pull that off, I guess is what I'm asking.
I think it really depends. So, like, say for example, I'm having issues with a partner, and then I'm going to spend time with another partner. It really depends on the dynamic that I do have with that other partner. If they're willing to like discuss our other partnerships. All of my current partners don't mind hearing about my other partners, so like I have a pretty open line of communication with them, and they don't mind it, and like they talk to me about their partners, and that's all good and fine. But if someone in a relationship prefers not to hear about your other partners, which is totally valid, then, when you go spend time with them, like, yeah, you basically, it's like when you have to go to work, you can't be crying at work because your husband and wife or your husband's fighting with you at home, right?
Right.
Okay, so go spend time with that person, get it out of your mind, go enjoy their presence, go do some fun things, have sex, whatever.
Yeah,
And then when you get back to your other partner, then you deal with that. So, yeah, it's not an easy thing to do,
sure.
but it's definitely something that you have to find a way to balance.
Yeah, and I feel like just in my experiences, like practice makes perfect. Like once you
Hmm.
sort of learn to like file it away into some other place, then you get really good at it. So yeah. Okay, so can you then, Nikki, can you talk about when you were married, right? This is
Hmm.
safe to bring up on this
Yeah.
episode. When you were married, um, what was it like to have the conversation of, hey, I think we should see other people, or we should bring more partners into it, or whatever. And I'm wondering if you could like really maybe like scrape the details of the anxiety like leading up to that conversation, because I
Sure.
would imagine it would be crazy.
So, my husband and I were married. Technically still are, I guess. Still going through a divorce currently. But anyways, so we were monogamous for the first 4 years of our relationship, and then, like I said, we're both pilots, so we travel quite a bit. I think we had both kind of like hinted very, very minute hints about like us being possibly interested in non-monogamy. And then one day we were just on the phone, about 4 or 5 states away from each other, and he told me he was just like, "Hey, I love you, I care about you, all these things, but like I'd really like to have the freedom to have sex with other people when we're apart." And I was immediately relieved because I wanted to ask him the same thing. I just didn't know how. He was the first one to actually bring it up. And then from there, we just had a really great discussion, kind of talked about boundaries and what that would look like. And then went at it from there. And obviously, like those discussions are always ongoing. And we started off slowly. It was a very fluid thing. So sometimes we, would go out and do things. Other times, like we were just happy with each other. So,
Right.
and then, last year we were like, hey, we want to do this a little bit more intently, and like got on the dating apps and whatnot. Um, so and to explain to people why we're getting divorced, essentially, he met someone and they decided that they want to have children together. He ultimately decided he wanted to have kids. When him and I got married, that was something that him and I didn't want together. And then so and not that you can't be polyamorous and have children, you absolutely can. It just, kind of got a little messy, looked a little bit different, and he ultimately made the decision that he wanted to go pursue that with her. And I wish him well in it. I hope he does have a beautiful family and all those things that he wants. But yeah, I would say initially, like in terms of having that conversation, it's not an easy thing to tell, to tell your spouse or your partner, like, hey, I want to have sex with other people.
Right.
But I mean, obviously, like the reason monogamy is hard is because we do have urges and desires towards others. So I think you have to get honest with yourself about, what you want, and then just have an open and honest, non-judgmental conversation with your partner about it and see if they're up for it. And if they're not, then you guys have to make the decision of whether you want to like continue, monogamously together, or break up the relationship so you can each pursue the things that will make you happy. I think in any relationship, people, not to sound selfish, but I think in any relationship, like, you really got to figure out what are you willing to compromise and sacrifice, and then stay true to those. So if at one point you get to a relationship, that's how it was like with children. Right at this point in time, like, I'm not willing to like compromise, or like sacrifice the things that I want that, where children would get in the way. That's why we ended our relationship. So if non-monogamy is something that like you really want to pursue, really want to practice, like, figure that out for yourself, have a discussion, and if they don't want it or they do want it, go from there.
Right. And I mean, it's never like an easy thing, I would imagine, right? Like it takes commitment to yourself and a commitment to like you said, what it is that you want. I'm wondering what that was like during that time for Cami. Did she just like text you like you'll never believe what he said, or what, or did you already know like going into it? What was
Um, well, so I found out about Nikki's non-monogamy journey at a festival. Um,
Okay. Yeah,
But to be
okay.
clear,
and
yeah, go ahead.
um, you know, and at first, of course, when I found out, I was like, "Oh my god, like, is it gonna, are they gonna hurt each other? Like, is this gonna hurt them?" Like, that's what I was mainly concerned about. I was like super worried. But I've always, one thing that I was very happy about was I got to witness Nikki and her husband's love quite frequently. I lived with them for some time, and the three of us were all very close, and I he was the true brother to me. So that was really nice. And when I saw them in their journey, I was like, okay, I'm really glad that this is working for them now. And of course, when they came to the impasse of you know the whole children thing, and they decided to split, like, I always just stood by. First and foremost, I'm loyal as hell to Nikki. I will never leave her side. But of course, I also support or her ex-ish husband in also pursuing what he wants, because I think it's really important at the end of the day. Like, life is about being happy and making those choices that take you there.
Right.
So if that's what he wanted to pursue, I'm glad he did that for himself. And I feel like so much growth has happened in the past year and a half that it's all been, really eye opening and just really good to go through, I guess.
Yeah, and I feel like we're in a time where everyone's relationship is changing on some level because of things that are going on in the world. It's like if your relationship hasn't changed for the better, for the worse, then maybe take a look at your relationship. I don't know. That's how I feel, at least. Everybody around me who's in a relationship has changed for the better, for the worse. I feel like, critics of non-monogamy would look at Nikki's situation and be like, well, to see he left because I'm scared that's gonna happen to me if I try it, and da 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 da. Like, what would your response be to that?
My response to that is, monogamy doesn't protect you from your partner leaving you for someone else. Divorce rates are at 50% for a reason. Um, but
Boom.
but to be Yeah, but to be quite honest, like, whether you're monogamous or non-monogamous, marriage, or the government getting involved in your relationship isn't going to protect you if you both decide to one day go on separate paths. Life is going to take you on those different paths, whether you like it or not. Like, that's what's going to happen. So if you get pulled apart, like, it's not because of monogamy or non-monogamy. It's because you both made it, or you each, or one of you, whatever, made a choice, to pursue something different.
Yeah.
You never really, in my opinion, you never truly have anyone. You're someone's choice until you're not. And yeah, for some people that are really lucky, it's great that you're that choice for that person forever. But for others, you're not. And sometimes people choose themselves, or choose someone else, whatever that looks like. But why would you want to keep someone that doesn't want to be with you?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Obviously, like, marriage is hard. You got to put work into a relationship, and we absolutely did put a lot of work and everything into it. It's not as if we didn't. But like I said, he made a decision of something that he wanted that looked different than what I wanted, and I'm proud of him for for choosing to pursue his happiness, and now I get to go pursue mine.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And
And I think, another thing too is people always have the scarcity mindset. You find one person and then you got to hold on to them because that's it. That's the one
Right.
person that you're meant to be with and all this fun stuff. And it's like, no, love is abundant. Things in the universe are abundant. Okay. Love will find me. I'll have another love story. Of course, it's not going to be the same as what I had with my husband.
But no love story should be the same.
Exactly. But it's still going to be another love story nonetheless. Like, I'm not in the least bit worried about it.
There's
So
7 billion people in the world.
yeah.
Right.
There's someone out there for everyone. And, and I always say, at least what I've learned is, yeah, you do get to have multiple beautiful love stories.
Right.
If you give yourself the ability, and remain open to it. So
I'll never forget, we were taking a college class one time, Cami and I, when we were in high school. And there was this lady in there. She was like probably in her 50s or 60s.
yeah,
What was her name?
Sandy.
Yeah. I'll never forget her. She lost 3 husbands to cancer.
Oh, wow.
But like she talked about how like she lost for her first husband, and then she found another beautiful love story with another guy, and they were together for like, another decade or two. And then, she lost him to cancer, and then she found another beautiful love story with another guy, and they were together for like a long time. Like she was a much older lady, and you could just see like the positivity and the love that she had for each of them in different ways, and how much she like enjoyed like seeing those different relationships as chapters in her life. Like, I thought that was like the most beautiful thing, and to me that just reminded me like, the ending of a relationship, as sad and hurtful as that can be, just means that now it opens a door to find another beautiful, loving, happy relationship in the future.
Right. Well, I mean, that's awesome. She had 3, but 3 in a row from cancer. Did they all work at the same nuclear power plant or what?
Well, I think the third one. I don't think the third one was from cancer. I thought it was from something else.
Uh-oh.
I don't remember, but anyways, it was 3 total. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, the lesson to be had there is, love is abundant. I think that's one of the great things about, when you talk about non-monogamy, when you talk about relationship anarchy, it's really, defining what your relationships want, what you want them to look like for yourself. I think that's like the great thing, and I'm very happy that this is all starting to become a little bit more normalized.
Yeah, you're starting to see it more in like shows and the media and whatnot, but it's true. And also, like, I personally love having like the freedom in my relationships to like lack structure. People really need structure, and I think people want structure because like it gives them something to hold on to, like a definition, so that they know in what direction they're moving in. And like that's great, and I understand wanting that, but at the same time, like, I also love the ambiguity in half of my relationships. Like whenever I see them and we spend time together, like I'm just thankful to be there with them and to have that time, whatever we're doing, enjoying each other's presence, and then just taking it from there. Like I don't need that structure all the time. So yeah, it's a very liberating thing.
Yeah, I feel like your Google Calendar is all the structure you need, really, right? Like if that thing's
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
if that thing's full, you're good
What
to, you're good to go. Um
I'm curious to know, like, what's your viewpoint on relationships? Are you in a relationship?
Yeah, are you monogamous? What?
so I'm not in a relationship. I in my previous relationships, I've been in a monogamous relationship, but it always I always wind up cheating, or they cheat, or we both cheat or something. Like um I've never like been in a practice like non-monogamous relationship. I would be totally open to it, I guess, I've just never um I've never there was like a little conversation in a previous relationship, but it was like when someone's like high and drunk at a party, like maybe we should or whatever, and I'm like, I think this is a trap, but it seems to go away like once you're sober, kind of thing. But you know, that being said, in previous relationships, I mean, like I said, it was touched on. There was like role playing and shit that we did like that. So, but beyond that, no. I mean, I'm someone who I've only had a very small handful of serious relationships, and I have a serious problem with commitment. I'm like what they call an avoidant attachment person, if you can't tell by now.
What's your sign?
I'm a Cancer, so you know, I feel like
Wait, what's your rising?
He probably doesn't know.
no. See,
We
this
don't mean to
comes
laugh.
up.
There's no.
This comes up a lot, right? I don't know all like the houses and horses and zodiac things.
There's only
whatever.
houses. There's no horses.
So if you
I
guys,
personally, cancers are dope.
Yeah, I love cancers. My
But
dom is a
I
Cancer.
would agree. I would
y'all
agree.
can be a little bit. Sometimes your emotions play against you.
Yeah.
And I think like circumstance wise, right? Like I spent my 20s and into my 30s like throwing parties, like doing things like not sex parties, but like big nightclub, bar, restaurant parties around tons of people, like tons of different sexual partners. And I saw a lot of stuff, right? I saw the best and the worst. I saw women who were willing to cheat on their husbands or their boyfriends or their fuck buddies, someone, whatever. And hey, I think it's great. I think it's awesome. But I also think my life before that, being like temperamental or moody or whatever cancers can be, that sort of changed where it's like I had less emotion at the end of that career as someone working in that industry. So I think that has affected me a lot. I really like sex. I'm a very sexual person. Previous partners have there's been one or two that have shamed me for being too sexual, which is never fun. It's kind of gross,
Yeah.
But yeah, I
It's
mean,
okay. I get that. A lot of
yeah,
times, my drive always outpaces my partner. So then, I think they feel the same. They're like, "Oh my God, how are you so sexual?" And I'm like, "I just am."
yeah,
But I think for me, like I've defined my sex as like something that like I draw a lot of power from it. Like I use it to relax. I use it to like relieve stress. I use it to just like get to know myself and my body more. And so
hmm
like those things give me power. So, but most people don't look at sex that way and they don't use it for good things.
yeah. I mean,
They try to use it to like,
sex is
yeah.
power, right?
Oh, it is absolutely.
Yeah,
Sexual energy is very powerful. Yeah.
absolutely, for sure. I feel like Cammy
Also,
has a question.
yeah, I was just gonna say no. I mainly laughed when you said I'm a Cancer because it made me think of the song.
Yeah.
Because we were both like, "What's your sign?" And you're like,
I'm
"I'm
a
a
Cancer.
I
Cancer."
don't know
And
that. I don't
I
even know the
know.
song.
You never heard the song?
You've
Oh,
I
never
it's
don't
on
think
heard this
so.
TikTok.
song?
I don't think so.
No, but I think, yeah, I think, and how everybody, your surroundings always will, influence how you, especially as you're growing up, how you view sex and all of that stuff. So
We're all okay.
I was just gonna say, I'm always grateful that I had Nikki to talk to about sex because
Right.
when you're like a young teenager and you're going into college, like nobody wants to talk about that, or if they do, like it's those very like hee hee conversations.
Yeah.
So
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too is like with non-monogamy or like even just like threesomes, right? Like I've had a handful of experiences. Jesus, something's in my throat. What the hell?
no, the allergies have been so bad. Mine
Um
too.
yeah, the weather's like doing its own version of non-monogamy. It's all over the place. Yeah, so I feel like, I've had a handful of experiences, right? And it's never been like something like planned or whatever. It's never been with a partner. It's always like I mean, there was one or two that was a little more thought out, right? But mainly it's always like again, you're like drunk and high at the bar and she's cute or whatever. It just kind of evolves. Or like you're at an after hours party, it kind of, whatever. A lot of those situations. But yeah, I mean, I obviously am open to that. And that's what's great about having you guys on the show is previously I feel like the narrative with the guests has been a lot of monogamy, right?
Mm.
So I wanted to really like introduce like the non-monogamy because it's important to what the fuck I'm doing on the show and it's important to like life, right?
Mhm. Yeah, offer different perspectives so people can, see that there are different options out there. Society only pushes monogamy. So,
Yeah.
like, Cami was saying earlier, it is starting to become more normalized. Like, I know there have been some Netflix shows that have shown more like swinging or non-monogamy, different forms of it. Obviously, like the representation hasn't been perfect, but at least it's there just so people, especially like the younger generations, can see that it's out there and that there are different ways to do it. And that's like my main goal with it. Like, I just want younger people to like realize that like the whole, like go to college, get married, have kids, buy a house, like life is over, that whole thing isn't how it has to play out. So,
At all.
Yeah. The fun part is when you do get to, go be a slut for a little bit.
Yes.
Go have some fun, enjoy other people's
Sluttiness.
presence and
Right.
what they can offer. Like it's great when people get vulnerable with each other. I think that's one thing that I like about, especially being an ally to the non-monogamy community is that, you know, I've had very positive experiences with the non-monogamists that I have met, and it's really
Mhm.
nice meeting, other open-minded, and same with like kinky people. Like it's great meeting other open-minded people who will get vulnerable with you, will, have that conversation, and explore different subjects without it being like weird or, like gross or anything, just because everybody's open minded and everybody's very consensual
Yeah.
and, very consent conscious, which is great. So, you know, that's one of the great things about exploring like non monogamy, or even like exploring kink is you really get to have good consensual experiences when you leave yourself open and you meet the right people. I mean, of course, like yeah, of course there's bad apples in every tree. But I would say we've had great experiences. So,
mhm.
yeah.
Okay, and that's perfect setup for the next question, which is where does someone start with non-monogamy, right? Let's say they're single, they're in a relationship, whatever they are, and they think they might be into it, but they're not sure. Where do they, if they're not sure what they're doing, who they are, how they feel, how do they get started figuring that out?
To be continued.
Hey, big thanks to Cami and Nikki for doing this special two-part episode of Sex Party with me. Hope you guys enjoyed that first installment. I think it's safe to say we set the foundation in this one. We covered a lot of the basics, and that in part two, things get a little more slutty, a little more wild, a little more sexual, a little more detail oriented, probably. It's really fun. It's amazing. And I am really looking forward to getting both of these episodes out to you guys. If you are having a good time with Sex Party, if you're listening on platforms like Apple and Spotify, yeah, you can subscribe. You can leave a review. I would appreciate that a lot. It helps the show out a fucking ton. It would mean a lot to me. If you are watching on YouTube, hey, how are you doing? Are you good? Did you have cereal this morning? You can subscribe on YouTube. You can like the video. You can comment. You can share. You can tell your friends. Um, I love you guys. All the support thus far has been fucking incredible. And I'm absolutely stoked to conclude this two-parter next week. See you soon.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at SexPartyFM. Follow Dustin at Dustin Rybka.